Hey there, it's me Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the description. Liz had been instrumental in the campaign to allow girls to wear trousers to school the previous year. There had been some resistance to the idea from the school establishment, but after a few months of campaigning, she had pulled it off. I offered you the chance to wear a skirt back then, she went on, still smiling. It was true, as part of the campaign Liz had convinced several of the boys to wear skirts to school one day. She had asked me to join in as well, but I had ducked out. Most of the protesters had been in her year at school, 2 above mine, so although I had some sympathy with what she had been trying to do, I had decided that being the lone 14-year-old was too much for me. It was funny now that Anita had succeeded where she had failed. Her eyes still pinned me against the side of the corridor, with Lawrence fidgeting by my side. Still, she went on, it's a matter of choice really. I never said girls shouldn't wear skirts, just that they should be able to choose. Now it's just the same for you boys, isn't it? I nodded back and smiled weakly, feeling embarrassed that I had refused her offer the year before, and still more that she remembered it. You were the only boy in your year I asked, she continued. I know, I replied, almost in a whisper. I thought you'd look good in a skirt then, and I still do. Her gaze held mine, and involuntarily, my hand moved up to smooth my ghost skirt, which I could feel against my legs. Well, I've got to go, she said suddenly, breaking our rigid stares. I'll see you both on Thursday looking your best then. She walked off down the corridor with her confident stride, and her blonde hair hanging loose down her back. Wow, said Lawrence, moving closer to me. You should do well on Thursday then, if she's one of the judges. What do you mean? I asked, still blushing. Oh come on Steve, he exclaimed, she fancies you like fury. I blushed even further. Don't be silly, she's 2 years older than me. Lawrence smiled knowingly. I'm not sure that makes a lot of difference. There was silence for a moment, then I decided to turn the conversation to other subjects. Anyway, how are you? I've not seen you since Sunday. Not bad, he replied. I'm getting used to the idea of going in for the contest anyway. I don't hate my mom or Tanya anymore. Good, I replied uncertainly. What happened to you yesterday? He went on. I looked around school for you, but Nikki said you weren't in. No, I replied. I took the day off. Practicing? He asked, knowingly. I was reluctant to admit this, but could see no way out. I nodded. I got some practice in the evening, he went on, matter-of-factly. I went over to Tanya's house, and spent the evening there. Oh, good. I responded uncertainly. It seemed odd to me that 2 boys should be standing here in the corridor, talking about their adventures in skirts as comfortably as he seemed to want to. I was wearing Tanya's uniform, he whispered, in a confidential manner. Yes, I thought that was what you meant, I replied, wondering how to make my escape from this stream of confessions. But I spent most of the evening talking to Maxine, he went on. I remembered how impressed he had been by Maxine's paintings in her room, and how it had been me who suggested he ask her for advice about his own. She's really good at art, he went on. I smiled in response, and looked at my watch as a preparation for my departure. And kissing, he continued, his eyes locking mine with a look of mischief in them. Kissing? I echoed incredulously. You mean you kissed her? He nodded, biting his bottom lip nervously. Well, more to the point, she kissed me. He grinned, and shrugged his shoulders a little. I didn't mean it to happen, but somehow it did. Honestly, Lawrence, she's nearly 4 years older than you. I know, he replied, enthusiastically. I'll have to be careful, won't I? I didn't know what to make of all this. Was he inventing the whole story for some strange reason, or could it possibly be true? I looked at him closely. He was shorter than me, and very slim-built. His eyes were lively and blue, and his close-cropped blonde hair did him less justice than the long blonde wig I had seen him in before. Surely Maxine wouldn't have fancied him, she was older and more sophisticated. There was nothing in his look or demeanor that suggested he was lying. More to the point, he seemed to be looking to me for some sort of approval. "Well, that's nice," I said, uncertainly. He continued to stare at me. "Don't you think it's a bit," he hesitated for a moment, "odd? You know, for an older girl to want to kiss me when I'm dressed as a girl myself?" I thought about this for a moment. All my instincts told me of course it was bloody odd. Then my mind turned to the way Liz had been looking at me minutes before, and also to the snogging session I had had with Anita in the cinema. I shrugged. "Well, maybe, maybe not," I replied. "As long as you both enjoyed it, I don't see any harm in it." "Really?" he asked eagerly. "Really," I affirmed, forcing a smile to my mouth. "You should be able to go out with whoever you want, age isn't that important." He seemed pleased with this. "And what about clothes?" he asked. I was entirely thrown by this, but decided to stick with my liberal philosophy. "Clothes don't matter either," I went on, "you should wear what you like, and if a girl finds you attractive in something, then you should try it. It's only fair." "Oh, I'm so pleased you said that," Lawrence enthused. "It's really been worrying me. Maxine just seems to love it when I'm in a skirt." "Well, she's not seen you in much else," I pointed out. "No," he agreed. "But she told me how good I looked in it." I felt nice somehow to have her say that. His eyes brightened as he looked at me. There seemed no disassembling in him, but somehow I felt disquieted by our conversation. "And what about you and Anita?" he asked. "How are you getting on?" I was alarmed by this question. "All right," I replied, without commitment. "It's obvious you love her," he observed, with concern showing on his face. I scowled in response. "I don't know about that." "Oh, Steve, you do," he accused. "But I think you might be better off with Liz, you know, she's more your type." "My type?" I queried. "Yes," he replied, then tilted his head to one side to consider how to explain the comment. "Anita's, well, she's more like us, I suppose." "Like us?" I continued, unable to think of any more sensible response than an incredulous echo. "Oh, I don't know what I mean really," he babbled. "It's just that you and me, well, we're more like girls, I suppose." "I'm not like a girl," I protested. He looked at me with almost theatrical disbelief. "You know what I mean," he insisted. "Being with Maxine made me realize it in me. It's not so much being like girls, that was the wrong thing to say," he went on. "It's just that we've got," he hesitated, "strong feminine sides." I stared at him with mixed feelings. What was it that he was trying to say? He looked pleadingly at me for a moment. "I don't mean to upset you, Steve." "I'm sorry, forget I said it." "No, it's all right," I said eventually. I thought about his new theory for a moment. "Maybe you're right, I'm not sure." There was still awkwardness in the air. "Listen, I've got to go now," I lied, "I'll see you later, okay? And if you bump into Chrissy again, try and give me a shout or something." He smiled. "Thanks. I'll see you tonight then, for the theater?" I hesitated before responding. "Yes, that's right. I'm looking forward to it," he said, brightening considerably. I walked off in the opposite direction and felt myself give a little shudder. Dressing in a girls' school uniform and snogging Maxine certainly seemed to have got him in touch with his feminine side to a rather alarming degree. Still, I reasoned, if he was happy, who was I to argue with him? But what about me? Did I really have a strong feminine side, like he had suggested? Is that why I had agreed to let Anita enter me in the contest in the first place, let her keep me dressed as a girl all the previous weekend, and then let her take me for some retail therapy the day before? I shook my head to try and clear the confusion. I needed to talk to Anita about all of this, but that was impossible. She was in different classes from me all afternoon, and I was due to spend the evening dressed in a peach gown at the theater, while she and John had their date. I felt strangely alone. The rest of the school day passed without incident. We filed out and down to the station to await the train home. I managed to find Anita, and by some pretense took her to one side to talk. "What is it, Steve?" she asked. I was blushing and stumbling over my words. "Do you think I've got a strong feminine side?" I eventually managed to say. She looked a bit taken aback. "Well, I suppose so," she replied. "You certainly make a convincing girl if that's what you mean." I grimaced, but pressed on. "But do you think I'm feminine anyway, when I'm dressed as a bloke?" She considered this for a moment and looked me over carefully as if to check. "Yes, I think you probably are," she said eventually. I was crestfallen. "But don't worry about it, it's good." "Is it?" I asked flatly. The girl I loved had just confessed what Lawrence had made me fear. She thought I was feminine. "Yes," she enthused. "It means you're sensitive and caring and stuff like that." She moved a little closer in a conspiratorial way. "And you don't always want to take the lead in relationships, you're happy for someone else to have a go as well, like yesterday in the cinema." She smiled at me, and I found myself smiling at the memory. "And you like that?" I asked. She looked away suddenly, as if struck. "Oh, Steve, don't push things," she exclaimed. "I told you yesterday, we've just got to take it as it comes. I love John, and," she stopped herself for a moment. "There's someone else who likes you as well." I stared at her and felt the pain of imminent rejection. She smiled at me. "Come on, Steve, we'd best get back to the others. They'll wonder what we're doing over here, and you've got to get ready for the theater when we get home." She walked back off to join our crowd, and reluctantly I followed on some paces behind. I was silent on the journey back, still cogitating Lawrence's comments. I was sitting in a train compartment with Anita, Sue, Nikki, and 3 other girls, no boys. This was the norm for me, and until then I had thought of it as something of a coup. Girls liked my company, and I liked theirs. That had made me something of a Jack the lad in my eyes, a ladies' man, even at 15. I flirted gently with all of them, Anita in particular, and had learned how they thought, and how they responded to things. Yet suddenly there was a new dimension to all this. Was I sitting in a carriage with 6 girls, with all of us feeling comfortable with the arrangement, because I was feminine? Is that why they felt okay with my presence, and I in their company? I wondered whether I should end the arrangement and start traveling with boys, but that would mean no longer seeing so much of Anita, and I could not consider that. I was still in turmoil when we reached the terminus, and began climbing off the train. Anita went off on her own for her date with the despicable John, while Nikki and I waited in the street outside for Tanya to join us from another part of the train. "Looking forward to tonight?" Nikki asked me, with a sly smile on her face. I shrugged. "It'll be all right." "It'll be good," she corrected. "I can't wait to see you in your dress again." Please subscribe my channel for the next part. And visit my Patreon page for early access.